Hey y'all, I'm on time tonight, okay? I'm gonna give people a couple of seconds. It is the middle of the week, aren't they right? Come on in the room, guys. Come on in the room. Lotion on this ashy skin. Come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. Let's get started in a couple of minutes. Okay, before. Got some 90s R&B and hip hop playing in the background, but we know how you don't own the rights to the music, you can't play it and they'll silence you. So I got it as low as I can so I can hear it. Might bust out a rhyme or something because my music was so good to us back then. Um, but today's topic is going to be very, very, very interesting. And I want you guys to interact with me, to ask questions and have your opinions because we all have them. This came to me after doing a almost combined 2 hour call with somebody yesterday, and I got really concerned about the person. They didn't have any suicidal ideations or any homicidal ideations. They just was going through something. It was a dilemma for them, and they could not process it. They could not even put it in words what they were going through. Um, so I was pondering, 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 and I was like, "Oh, I got it." And yesterday, last night, I wrote the information down, and this morning I did a little research of my own, and that's how I came up with today's topic. But before we go into that, let us do our check in, our mental health check in, our midweek check in. I put up there late today. My baby girl came over and I forgot. She kind of distracted me. I love when she comes over to visit and talk to me and stuff like that. It keeps me going just to see her. She's enjoyed to have. I think I posted around like 5 o'clock this evening. So it's kind of late for that the midweek check-in, but I posted it. And I am doing just absolutely great. So I put a red heart up there. I'm doing great. No issues, no problems, no concerns, no deadlines, no procrastination, no issues with hurting or pain. My mental well-being is there. My spirituality is at check. My romance is at check. Everything is working out fine. The physical, the spiritual, and the mental, everything is fine in my system. I praise God for that. But if you are doing great, you can put up some red heart emojis in the chat. If you're doing great, put up some red heart emojis. If you are doing okay, this is blue. It is not purple. I know it probably looks purple on your screen. Some screens it looks purple, but if you're doing okay, put up some blue emoji hearts. Yellow, mellow, man. Just been one of them days. Throw me some yellow hearts up there. If things are tough and you're struggling, throw some green hearts up there. And yesterday, there was a struggle to get somebody to communicate what was going on. They were going through some different things. This is purple. This is purple. If you're having a hard time and you wouldn't mind if somebody was to reach out to you, throw them purple emoji hearts up there. Again, guys, I check my DMs every day. I check my emails every day. Any questions you want to ask me that you don't feel comfortable putting in the chat, always, DM me or call me. If you're in a really dark place, this is the broken emoji heart. If you're in a really dark place, put the broken emoji heart up there. If you're having some harmony and balance in your life, this is the pink emoji heart. Harmony and balance in your life, you can put the pink emoji heart up there. Still want to give a shout out to my guest from last week, Pastor Cheryl Pinckney and her book Panty Talk. I do believe I forgot to put that web link up for her book, so I will put that up. I will include that into tonight's resources. Pastor Pinckney is very, very busy. She has a event coming up in November. I believe it's November the 15th. I will put that information up. You'll see the flyer circulate on your timeline or things like that on my story, on a reel. I'll put that information up. I will be one of the panelists that will be speaking at her event, and it's wonderful that she has asked me to be a part. She is a true soldier, a true woman of God, and she will be back because we didn't even get to the middle of that book. We didn't get to the middle of that book. So if you're feeling optimistic and uplifting, hi, Mom Terry. If you're feeling optimistic and uplifting, put some orange emoji hearts up there. If you had a day like this, we have days like this. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't feel good. Sometimes it's constipated. Put the brown emoji heart up there. If you had a day like this, put the brown emoji heart up there. If you did minimum today, you just got through having some mixed feelings, put the white emoji heart up there. Mixed feelings, minimum that you did today, but you got through it, put the white emoji heart up there. Where's my girl at, Miss Carla? She always puts the gray emoji hearts. She's cool, self-restraint, and she has some humbleness coming her way. We always got to be humble. We got to humble ourselves, especially in this day and time. If you're feeling relaxed and friendly, this is the light blue emoji heart. If you're feeling relaxed and friendly, put the light blue emoji heart up there. Some anger and sadness, this is the black emoji heart. This is the emotion that we don't like to deal with. It's often sadness and anger. Anger takes us to another level. Sadness, we have those feelings of crying and, things that we don't want to feel. But this is the one I like to talk about the most. So if you're having some issues with anger, some sadness, let's talk about it if you feel comfortable about it. And our last one is the flaming heart. If you were frustrated today, somebody got on your nerves and they didn't understand you, or they didn't quite get what you were trying to put off on them, put the flaming emoji heart up there for being frustrated. And for those that are new, if you're joining in and you're new, I see some people on TikTok. If you're new, my name is Kimball Evans. You're in the Trap Lounge. I'm your trap therapist. I come on every Wednesday at 8:30 at night. I speak for maybe like an hour, talking about different topics and issues in general. This is a psychoeducation web live cast that I do every single Wednesday to debunk the issues surrounded around mental health, surrounded around good therapy, surrounded around how you cope, and just to give out free information. I love what I do. I have a bachelor's in behavioral health and I have my master's in psychology, but that doesn't mean anything if you cannot connect with people, right? You can be book smart all you want. If you can't connect with people, there's something that's not right. So my topic tonight is the streets. And I got all excited yesterday. I was able to post a little flyer on all my social media platforms, and they allow me to play some music on there. And I put Beanie Siegel's hit up there, because the streets is where things happen, when there's experiences, where you witness stuff, but there's also violence in the streets and it impacts your mental health. We are so predisposed to, like in Philadelphia, if anybody's in Philadelphia, you've seen on the news yesterday and then today, they had everything live and ready for you. The shooting that happened at Ridge and Cecil B. Moore. I know that neighborhood. Hey, Miss Carla. I used to live around here a long time ago. And so Ridge and Cecil B. Moore is a very, very busy street highway. People all on the strip, the avenue. So to hear yesterday on the news that there was 3 people that got shot. One person did lose their life. They're deceased. It was a 78-year-old man that lost their life in broad daylight. Broad daylight. And so I had a call yesterday from a male. I don't know how old he was. Um, if I could guesstimate his age, he was either between the age of 20 to 25. He couldn't have been in his 30s. Because I was talking to him about my son, and my son's in his 30s, so he wasn't in this age range. But he could not articulate what he needed help in. He was in that much distress. And so I'm talking to him and I'm letting him know what the hotline is about, what it's for, how can it, help him. And so he starts getting into these words, which is kind of like Tangiel speech. And nothing makes sense. The cat with green shoes, that doesn't make sense, right? But he identified a cat, some shoes, and a color. So sometimes when you're going through a traumatic issue or the mental health distress, your mind clicks on and off differently. You can't get things out together. That's why it's not good to try to investigate a crime right then and there, because everybody's minds is just so, trying to, fill those holes in and saying, did that actually happen? So that's normally when the police will go out the next day and gather their witnesses and see what people saw, things like that. When you're going through a crisis, trauma, murder, stabbing, robbing, anything like that, your mind is in that flight mode. In that flight mode, you need to be safe. You're not caring what's going on. So with this young guy yesterday, he was telling me, the streets ain't safe, people ain't loyal. And I'm talking to him, and it just seems like either he was into something that somebody got harmed and they lost their life, or he witnessed somebody lose their life and he couldn't articulate what was going on. But he kept saying that, the streets is not like how they used to be. There's no loyalty. You can't trust anybody. That was the first call. And he actually got me back again. Actually, he made 10 calls yesterday to the line, just 10 calls to the 98 line. But the second time that he was able to get me in that rotation, the first question he asked me, he didn't even remember that he was talking to me before. The first person he asked me is, do you guys keep people safe? Indication number one. Hey, Glow, how you doing this evening? The second question he asked me was, have you ever seen a dead body? And as we were talking, he had some music in the background. I'm like, who are you listening to? It's some rap music in the background. And he referenced King Von. I didn't know who that was. And he said, just look him up. And so while I'm talking to him, he was telling me some things about his experiences in the streets. And when he found out that my son is 30, he could see that I was clearly a little bit older than him. And, I was telling him that, the game has changed in these streets. It's not like how it used to be growing up. And that's some of the things that I got in here. But I also want to define what these streets, I'm a word person. I'm always in the dictionary. I'm always looking stuff up. I'm always researching. So in the Urban Dictionary, which was crazy, the Urban Dictionary, anybody can put anything in there, like Wikipedia now, because in the Urban Dictionary, it had a lot of negative negative things towards women, like she belonged to the streets, or to put her back in the streets, which is like a promiscuous woman, calling her the B word, the smut, all these negative things about a woman. But when I found the good definition that was in the Urban Dictionary, it said the streets is a made-up place that was needed for the look of toughness. In rap songs, also known as the trenches. Right? I heard of the trenches before. It's a crime-ridden area or hood. We've heard of the hood before, right? Known for its crimes and violence. And then again, it was talking about a promiscuous woman. Then when I Googled And then I looked up the definition, and then tell me what the streets are. It says it typically refers to a public or city road, the streets, right? But automatically it represents urban life, hardships, crime, or informal culture outside of formal institutions. It can also mean being unhoused or living on the streets. Urban hardships is a rough, crime prone, or impoverished environment. So, learning how to survive on these streets, meaning real world experiences, practical knowledge of culture. What culture are they talking about? The culture that we see as much. How you doing, Abby Alex? The culture that we see as much is the people of color culture. When you're thinking of these streets, right? The trenches, the hood. So this practical knowledge or culture that comes from everyday life rather than books or street smarts, being street smarts. And that's where I kind of like disassociated with, because I used to hear my dad say and my siblings say that I was not street smart. I was book smart. I had to learn how to be street smart no matter where I lived at. And I'm not going to rep my hood on here. I told my daughter that I would not do that because so many people get that repping their hood mixed up. And if I don't know you, you ain't from my hood. Just leave it there, right? So some common slang is for the streets. And slang meaning someone is overly promiscuous. Again, this is talking about a woman. She's for the streets. She's overly promiscuous, or someone is untrustworthy regarding relationships. Or how about this? If y'all heard of any terms or common slang for the streets, is I run the streets. Run the streets. So it means you spend a lot of time wandering or hanging out outside, often late at night. So a lot of people run the streets. They spend a lot of time wandering, hanging out outside, often late at night. You'll see people hanging on corners in front of Chinese stores, playgrounds, basketball courts. But the streets is talking about real world events and daily life on the streets directly that affects your mental health by shaping stress levels, emotional safety, and social connection. There are some positive interactions that build a sense of belonging and calm in the streets. When I was growing up, having a village, and that means people looked out for one another, having care and concern about the little people, kids, single mothers, grandmothers. Those were, concerns. I can get, my mom could get ready because I was a child. The neighbor to watch us and let my mom know if we did something we wasn't supposed to do, like be outside when she wasn't home or have company. A village, if you did something wrong and an adult knew your people, knew your family, they were able to spank you. They were able to discipline you. Mhm. So some negative things about the streets is it's very high stress in situations that trigger anxiety, fear, and long-term emotional fatigue. Also, there's safety concerns. Someone witnessing a crime or violence, or having poverty, being low income in the community. This causes fear and ongoing worry. So as I was putting together, trying to piece together what was going on with this person last night, because they had this fixation again on this rapper King Von, and I didn't know anything. So he taught me a lot yesterday. And my husband also was talking to me about some things, and I was looking up some things. But let me give you some numbers. Because again, this is to teach people. There's approximately 20% of U.S. high school students and up to 60% of children nationwide that witness or experience community crime, abuse, or street violence yearly. Now, this rate has spiked up significantly in the under-resourced urban areas. And I kept seeing that word urban, like the Urban Dictionary, right? So urban means like a location where it's high population, there's man-made buildings, and it's crowded. It's in a city, it's crowded. The U.S. Census Bureau says in urban areas, there's like 5,000 people or 2,000 housing units. A lot of people, not enough room, right? Not a lot of people, 5,000 people, and it's only 2,000 houses or units of houses. So the one thing I was focused on when I was trying to talk to you last night was crime. We know the streets, there's going to be some crime, there's going to be some hustle, there's going to be some drama. So crime. High school students, according to the CDC, youth have a risk behavior. They found this survey that 19.9% of teens from the ages of 13 to 18 witnessed community violence in a 12-month span and within a year. So 19% of kids 13 to 18 witnessed community violence. Like the thing, again, I said I'm going to give you something up to date. The triple shooting that happened at Ridge and Cecil B. Moore yesterday. Now, there's also a national survey of children exposed to violence. Noted roughly 60% of youth experience or witness violence in their communities or either in school or at home. High poverty or inner city hotspots exposure rates jump drastically to 30% of youth witnessing a stabbing and 26% witnessing a shooting. These numbers are skyrocketing now. And so what I was talking to the young man about yesterday is just the culture of it, the rules of the streets, the difference between being. So again, last night the local news channel, I was watching Channel 10 last night, reported 3 individuals were shot near Ridge and Cecil B. Moore Avenue, and a 70-year-old man had passed away from that incident. And this happened in broad daylight. Again, it was a high volume area, and there was over 50 casings. 50 casings they found there from gunshots. We already know that there were 4 assailants. If you watch the news today, they had a little bit more video that they showed. So imagine all those people on the street witnessing something that happened. Witnessing 3 people get shot, not knowing if one person made it or not. So when we talk about the streets, is a certain image that society shows, is a certain swag that you have in your own hood, in your own neighborhood, in cities or in different towns. So in TV, you'll see things like I'm watching this show now called Snowfall. It's a show about people of color who who has low income, families just trying to make ends meet. There's drug, crime, and murder in the movie Snowfall. Now, it's a mixture between races. There's African American people, there's some Spanish people, some Cuban people, some Mexican people, some Caucasians. There's different type of people, but in the streets, you'll see the people of color more. And I remember watching a movie or watching a TV show back in the day called Breaking Bad. So this means that the streets doesn't have any particular color to it. Because Snowfall, it's talking about an African American family, right? And in Breaking Bad, it was a teacher that was overqualified. He was a chemistry teacher in high school. This man found out that he had cancer. If anybody's seen Breaking Bad, he was a bad mamma jamma, honey. I think he was the father from Boy Meets World. Okay. But this teacher got together with a student to start selling and manufacturing crystal meth. Teacher needed money for his health, and he needed money to feed his family. Right? We all know the old movies, Boys in the Hood, Scarface, New Jack City, the movie The Wire. There was a good show coming live and direct from out of Baltimore, right? If anybody watched The Wire, and then this is a show that I used to love watching that depicts some of the culture, some of the images and ideas of the streets. The TV show Oz. Inmates and correctional officers inside of Oswell State Correctional Facility, known as Oz, they battled for power and survival. So not only is the streets talking about things outside, but also things inside after a crime happened. How you have to rep inside there, your hood, your street, who you know inside there, or who you know outside of the prison system for your reputation, for somebody not to harm you. I had someone say that social media is getting people hyped up because in high school or in school you had your jocks, you had your people that played sports, you had your cheerleaders, you had your popular people, you had the bullies, and then you had the not so people that didn't get along. They were maybe nerds and to socialists, whatever. You had those people. But now that you got social media, everybody has kind of leveled up on some people even put themselves at a different level that they shouldn't be, I would say, right? And it's when you get all those social media beefs. Hey, Burke. But straight coming out of Philadelphia, if anybody heard about or seen the movie, I know y'all seen this movie, State Property, right? State Property was about drugs, money, power, and games. And since I played my song with Beanie Siegel on here this evening, I love this movie because in this movie, again, a thing in the streets is you're going to either get down or you're going to lay down. Okay, this is what this movie was about. And this is what the image of the streets is. And how can you maintain safety, security when things like this is happening? Now, I was telling a guy yesterday, we had a lot of stuff happen here in Philadelphia. The mafia was out. You watch movies like The Godfather Part 1, 2, 3, and 4. You watch the movie Goodfellas, Reservoir Dogs. These are all images connected to the street life. Even in our music, as a guy was educating me last night, the rap music, gangster rap, it talked about the hood and survival. Then you got street rap, and it's different terms that they use. Street rap is a raw diary of urban survival artists, use heavy beats and honest bars to share tales of hustle, pain, and life on the block, in the streets. Now, when street rap and rap music started getting out there, you had a group like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. They had a rap song called The Message. Then I looked up some stuff that I liked. Nas in New York State of Mind. NWA, they had the popular song F the Police. It was against police brutality and, out signaling young black men or men, period. And then, Tupac, he had the thug life going on, but he had a song called To Live and Die in LA. Then you had the marathon continues from the legacy of Nipsey Hussle. We remember Nipsey Hussle, rest in peace to him. You had artists come out like Jay-Z and Biggie, and you had the Wu-Tang Clan singing Cream. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. And then I came up and I just seen that it was something new called drill music. And this is where King Von and some of them people come from. Drill music is intense storytelling that documented the raw and often violent realities of street life. And they came, the guy was talking about King Von. King Von died tragically in the late 2020s. He was in a fight with somebody. He seen this person on the street in a car. He went to go approach him. They start fighting. According to the story, King Von was giving the guy his business, and the guy's friend shot King Von. Okay, so it was a neighborhood feud. But King Von routinely honored fallen friends and detailed the psychology toll of losing his community to the system. And a lot of people from the streets will tell you, the system ain't made for us. And that system is those powerful institutions of government, law, and corporate authority that control society and keep the everyday people in line, meaning we get unfair treatment, oppressive, treatment, police brutality. The court system is jacked up. I was telling the young man yesterday, like it was a difference, and I'll get into that difference between the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and then 2000s of how you needed to move in these streets. Tell me about some hood laws or some urban legends, as you call them, that you know about for being in the streets. Then there was another rapper, he was referencing Little Jeff. These are people I never heard of. And I was talking to my husband about him, and he was like, yeah, there was some things going on. But Little Jeff was also this real life, literal reporting of neighborhood warfare, gang behavior. And he also died young. He died at 21 years old. I was telling him that there's a 30-30 club for musicians that died early. Because I remember I was doing outpatient services and I was talking to a kid. The mom was concerned. They was not going to school. Even if they went to school, they were not doing well. You do discipline, cutting school, smoking weed. This kid was like 13, 14 years old. And so mom had brought him in. And I'm talking to the kid and I see on his knuckles, he has like 3 numbers tattooed on his knuckles, and on the front of his hand, he had, I think two letters, LG or something like that. And I'm like, what is the numbers represent? He was like, oh, this is my team number. I'm like, a team number? You only get 2 numbers when you're on a team, no matter what sport you play. I don't know what numbers you get with 3. They got 3 numbers on here. And he was like, my mom asked me that too. I said, well, how did you get the tattoo? One of his older homies took him to get the tattoo. And I just asked him, I was like, are you in a gang? And he was like, not so. He associate with people that's in a gang. He associate with people that's in the gang. He's not in the gang, but he can have these numbers on his knuckles and then the 2, whatever those letters was that associated with the gang. Little Jeff associated with the gang, and I think King Von also associated with a gang. And there was a big gang bust in Philadelphia that happened the beginning of the summer. The beginning of the summer and sometime in the winter, there was a lot of shootings happening. A lot of shootings was happening over social media beef, right? Over social media beef. People would link up and meet somewhere and things would just turn bad because that's what the streets do, right? So I told him there was rules back in the day. You couldn't, kill women and children and old people. And where I'm from, hey, Lionel, where I'm from, if anything went off and popped off, the people that was in the streets that was, hustling and doing what they needed to do to survive, they would say, get your people inside, something about to happen. That did not happen yesterday at Ridge and Cecil B. Moore. There is no more what you call loyalty in the streets. We've seen that in a movie. What was the movie? Juice. See in the movie Juice, Tupac killed all his friends. He got them all. There's no loyalty in that. There was a loyalty. There was trust. There was honor back in the day in the streets. That's not the case anymore. You don't know who to trust. And this guy that I was talking to yesterday, he had a hard time distinguishing whatever his reality was. Again, I'm not sure. I was telling my husband, I hope that this wasn't the case, that he either seen or witnessed a murder, or he was the one that murdered somebody. And I remember what a veteran told me a long time ago. When you take a life, it's something that always stick with you. And he was a soldier. He was in the Vietnam War, but he didn't take a life in the Vietnam War. When he came home as a young man, he was walking in the park, and these people tried to rob him. The guy that tried to rob him didn't know he had a gun. And so he went and took out his gun, and he ended up shooting and killing this person that tried to rob him. And now he's an older person, and it sticks with him. So there is some long-term mental health things that impacts the streets, where you grew up at, the environment you grew up at, what you've seen, what you witnessed, even the life experiences that you went through. Now, the streets in the 70s in Philly, New York, and LA, it turned really, really violent in the 70s. It was a battleground due to intense turf wars involving the mafia and young youth street gangs. So in the 70s, it was the mafia. They was running stuff. And you had the street gangs wrestling or battling for turf wars. They wanted this certain end of the block or this certain territory. You can see that in the movie Harlem that has Forrest Whitaker in there. There was over 100 active youth gangs with more than 5,000 members in the 70s that fought over neighborhood boundaries. And this was in North and West Philly. I'm talking about where I'm from. I got information from where I'm from. 5,000 members, and this was in the 70s. So North Philly and West Philly, there was some territorial stuff going on. West Philly, if you couldn't go to the bottom. North Philly, you couldn't be in a certain area at a certain time. I'm not going to, again, say what that area was, okay? In the 80s, there was still some street wars going on. It was very brutal. It was conflicts fueled by, again, the crack cocaine epidemic. Ms. Carter says, you on a little street in North Philly putting out trash, and you look in the next 100 and you see a delivery guy on his motorbike. I'm just going to read what she said. On his motorbike, just did a delivery and was stopped by a guy out of nowhere and stops him and says, "That's my bike and give it to me." By now, it's a crowd wondering and hovering over this thing, and they go back and forth with, "No, it's my bike." Well, no, it's my bike. And the guy that approached him said, "Give me $350 and you can go." So he was trying to Brody this guy for his bike, is what she's saying. He said, "Give me $350 and you can go." And the young man pleaded and stayed calm and refused to give up his bike. The one the one old head said, "Man, why is you lying? Let this guy go and get out of this community." This was in broad daylight. Imagine it was an actual robbery and nobody was around. Nobody was around. And you can see that, Miss Carla, depicted in the movie Friday with Debo. So not only do you see it in rap music, you see it in movies, you see it in TV shows. These things that we talk about for the streets is really things that really happen. But again, that does not depict that. It does not mess up or impact your mental health. Because again, you have fight, flight, and freeze. Those are 4 responses to you being safe. You're either going to fight your way out of it, you're going to freeze, stall out, don't know what to do, or you're going to run for safety. And now a lot of people that either witnessed something, seen something, had something done to them. It could have been a crime, like somebody getting robbed or getting Brody for their bikes, or back in the day, delivery drivers, Pizza Hut, whatever, would come in your neighborhood, they would rob the delivery driver. Now they're not robbing a delivery driver or the Uber driver, they're shooting them to kill them. So in the 1980s, it was still some brutal conflict going on, but the crack cocaine epidemic came out. In LA, the Bloods and the Crip gangs was warring back then really heavily, right? And if you go to the 90s, and now I will tell you that the music also started changing, because in the 70s you had Grandmaster Flash and them, maybe the 70s or late 80s, talking about what happens in the hood. These are the things that we're getting oppressed from. The system is holding us down. Then in the 80s, you might have got a little bit of the gangster rap, or what they call street rapping. The 90s, you still had people like Nas and Jay-Z and Biggie and Tupac out there. So in the 90s, there was combat zones. You still had the crack cocaine epidemic, but there was territorial drug disputes. This is when drugs was high up there. Like the sale of drugs and, weed now, the dispensaries now, was not like it was in the 90s. It was a hot thing. If you were a drug dealer, you was making some bread. You was making some money. You may have had some street cred, right? And if you didn't have none, if you was associated with somebody, you had some street cred. And then if you had some street cred back then, even if you was associated with somebody that had some street cred, people knew not to mess with you or your people or your family. In the 2000s, there's no hold on who can get got. That's a 7-year-old child. It's a mother that's pregnant. It's, 10 years later, and that's their kid. Oh, he locked up, but we still want to get at him, so we're going to kill his kid. Matter of fact, we're going to eliminate the whole family. You see how it gets more violent and more devious and more dangerous in the streets? So in the 90s, it was combat wars, combat zones. Again, still the crack cocaine epidemic, territorial drug disputes, gang violence was still going on, but there was organized street crews. You had organized street crews, and the movie that pops in my mind is Beat Street. And Beat Street, they didn't really fight like that. They danced. They danced it out. You know what I'm saying? You had your street crews, dancing out. They fought for blocks and control, but it wasn't much of fighting going on, because it was something saying, we're killing our black men and black, women. We don't want to use guns and violence. So it was a common sense of era. You were talking about how you dress, what you rocked, what party you went to, what DJ was in, what club was hot. Another old head was saying when they was out in the 90s, they was talking about getting money, making love to the honeys. Now in the 2000s, they're talking about what kind of drug you can use to get you high, and who betrayed who, and who was the ops. So you watch it on TV shows, like, again, in Harlem. I love that TV show with Harlem with Forest Whitaker. And it was high casualties of shootings in these movies. And you still see them, like in Scarface. There's the most famous picture when he has all this coke on his desk. And these people are coming for him because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. You watch the movie, you watch the movie. And so he gets into his mode that he gonna fight his way out. And ain't nobody gonna mess with. I'm a big guy. Y'all don't know who Tony Montana is? You watch the movie. And so he gets his gun and he starts shooting, and come on. And now he's all coked up. And we know at the end, Tony gets eliminated. Ms. Burke said that is why they moved. because of the stuff with the streets, the violence and stuff. That is why my sister, my twin sister, also moved out of the city. Hey, Didi, how you doing, baby girl? God bless you as well. That's why she moved as well. It was getting a little bit more violent around the way where the area that she purchased her first home in, it changed drastically. Fentanyl was in that area. Opioids was in that area. It was a lot going on in that area. Again, I'm not calling street zones out in Philly because that's not what we do. If you from where I'm from, you know me from where what the hood I'm from. We don't call things out. That's not what we do. People that do that is, they looking for attention. They looking for rep. They matter of fact, they going off of somebody else's rep. Hey Melissa, how you doing this evening? Miss Carter said when the crack epidemic hit Philly, Logan was hit the hardest with dealers buying out homes and turning them into crack houses and forcing families out of their homes. And it was mostly the Jamaicans and was killing those who took advantage of them. I can remember that. And now, Miss Carter, there is still beef between Logan and Alany. There's still beef. It's generational beef between Logan and Alany. When I first moved up here, I told my kids it's a certain Chinese store. Don't go to that Chinese store because if you walk past that Chinese store, now you're in Logan. My kids didn't understand that again because they wasn't street smart either. They was book smart. I sheltered my kids. I did not let them know what went on in my life as far as me being in the streets or me being in where I grew up at. And what happened? These kids are the show me kids. What happened? My daughters and my niece, they went past that Chinese store now. They was in Logan. And when they were asked, who you guys, because we never seen you before, it was, young kids. And they jumped my kids. I'm like, I ain't even going to go over there and see what happened because I told you not to go on that side. And they was like, yeah, it was crazy. They was hyped up because it was never a big crowd that they got into. It was so many people out there fighting. They was hyped. I was just glad that they didn't get hurt. That's when they got introduced to, someone of them, I think my niece got tased by somebody. But that's why my sister moved out of her neighborhood because her daughter grew up. She was able to keep her daughter safe. The home, that environment was safe. People knew who you were, where you lived at. But then she had a son, and we know what the streets would do to your son. And we know what the streets would do to your son. So there, to combat the crack cocaine epidemic, they had this new law enforcement called the RICO law. Look it up, y'all. The RICO law. They was tearing down notorious high-rise public housing projects. And my mind, when I thought about tearing down the high-rise public housing projects, was in the Tasca projects. If you're from Philly, you know about the Tasca projects. And in the Tasca projects, girls used to date people outside their neighborhood. And if you wasn't from that side of the neighborhood, you was coming to visit your girl, there was a problem. 4th and Tasca, somewhere around there. They tore down Tasca projects. There was projects near 11th and Diamond, I believe, over there. Ooh, get me, honey, get me. I don't know if there were high rises in West Philly. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was high rises in West Philly. But then the FBI also in the 90s start targeting top tier gang leaders or top tier dope, people that sold drugs. That's it on 25th Street, 25th and what? 25th and Diamond you talking about? Did I just say I wasn't naming no locations in Philly? Y'all see me today. Y'all better see me tomorrow as well. Because in Philly, we don't play. They don't play with streets, territory, people you know, people you, because they'll ask who your people is. I do that a lot to my kids when they have new friends. All right, who your people? Where you from? Because that's what the people used to do in your neighborhoods. Okay, you moved in. Where you used to live at? Where you from? Who your peoples? And if you were good peoples, okay, you could connect. Even if you were bad peoples, you don't mess with them. Don't mess with them. That's you don't want them. That's what they say now. That smoke or that heat or that drama. You don't want it. Don't mess with them. Now in 2000, the gang wars still was escalating in major cities. It released veterans, and at this time, people that even went to jail because of that RICO law, now they were coming out. So the old heads was coming out of jail. Gang members was making their way in prisons. And there still was tough turf battles. It was still issues over drug distribution, and it was a high rise in homicides and violent crimes. And just like Ms. Carter said, homes was taken away. People's homes were snatched away. And what are the mental health and long-term impact from the street life or the street culture? There's PTSD, there's depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and depression, living in or near violent streets, violent hotspots, local rates of moderate depression and PTSD running up to 85%. 85%. This was higher in low crime areas. That's a lot, people. Now imagine if you was a child in the 70s. Then you grew up in the 80s, and you were kind of getting used to what you seen, and it was kind of desensitizing you. And then so if you grew up in the 70s and you start probably having children, in the 90s. And so in the 90s, now you're having children. There's a whole crack epidemic. Parents was leaving their children at, in the worst type of conditions, in the worst ways, just for that crack rock. So there was no discipline. And then grandmoms was taking care of the kids. Grandma was raising her grandchildren. There was a lot of babies born in that crack era. And so imagine those 90 kids now grown up. So PTSD and depression at an 85% higher rate. And some people don't get treated. This is normal life for them. They're not depressed. They don't have PTSD. They're not anxious. They're not fearful. They don't have that high level of either fight or flight. And I say that high level, you ready for anything at any time. You already on 10 every morning. Where all my fighters at? All my fighters, the ones that survive, all my fighters, because I was like that. I was always on 10. I got bullied in school, elementary, middle, and high school. Y'all heard my story. I got bullied. But I had a twin sister that said, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. I'm gonna make you fight them all. And see, back in the day, a fight was a fair fight with these. You may have had some people shank somebody, and again, you get cut. You may have had somebody that had a weapon that's going to shoot, but a fight was with these. Either you lost and you came back to fight that person again, or everything was cool. There was no more beef, no more controversy. Now, a fight, some people ain't even thinking about using their fists. They straight going for this. And then what I say, like one of my friends said, you don't even come to me face to face. You shoot me in the back, or you set me up. But that's how the streets is. Again, watching these movies, and you see these things in the movies, and it's different from actually, like the vet said, taking somebody's actual life. So behavior risk, witnessing street violence is strongly correlated with higher risk of substance use, anxiety, and future aggressive behaviors. Why is it my thing not clicking on over here? So those behavioral things start to happen. I'm gonna try to do this real quick, y'all, because TikTok be playing me. So I read this article that talked about community violence of, what color, uh, people of color, Latinos, that's Latino communities are really disproportionately impacted. You have youth and young adults from ages 10 to 34. 10 to 34 that are impacted by this violence. The young guy again that I was talking to last night, he couldn't have been no older than 20, maybe 5, 26. Ms. Carter said Haynes Street, Somerville, the BWL, Germantown, it was territorial going to school in that area. Muslims recruited males and females to join the mosque, gang warring, silent killers, and JBM. We all know about those things in Philadelphia. You don't know about them things in Philadelphia. So witnessing something, because we've seen it again in the movie, was it New Jack City or Juice, where the guy started using drugs? And you like, Dad, you was out there getting money. But what he was seeing, what he probably had to do, or what he was witnessing, your mind can't take that. Your mind can't take that. Look at our young men today that have seen their friends get shot down in front of them in cold blood, or they have heard about it. And again, this isn't just happening with young Black males or Latino males. This happened with women too. I have had friends that have lost their lives because of some street beef, because they was known with the association. And after a while, you don't even want to come outside. A lot of parents was keeping their kids inside. Debbie said the 50 Cent movie, the Curtis Jackson movie with 50 Cent in there. And so people will try to depict what they see on TV, but you don't even have to do that. All you got to do is just step outside into them streets. So you don't think there's going to be some PTSD that your kids going to be going through, and they don't want to talk to you about it? They're afraid to even talk to you about it because you might be the ops. I've seen mothers turn their kids in. I've seen grandmothers turn their grandchildren in. You on them crime lines, when they say the call is confidential, you'll get some money if you turn some. I've seen it happen. I've had people come into my office and tell me the things that my dad did. Now they're after us because his name carries so much weight, but he did so much dirt in them streets. It has an impact on your mental health. Again, you're either in survival mode or you're even in fight mode. I did a mental health awareness at my church, and I had one of my, I call him my nephew, and a coworker of mine come and talk about um, what he witnessed and how he was raised. His mom and them raised him, and to be, they sheltered him basically. And once he got old enough to get out there in them streets, it wasn't pretty. His friends were just dying left and right. And what was so amazing about him coming to speak to young men and to black men there, he knew the exact dates that things happened, the exact dates, the exact time, sometimes the exact things that he wore when one of his friends was gunned down. And so if you have young males at home or females at home and they're into being in the streets and they're losing friends, don't think that they have gotten over that or grieved it. They are not over it. They're not grieving it. They're holding that stuff in. And I believe this young man either, again, witnessed something or he did something. And he was in so much distress that he could not articulate what was going on. All he said is, do you save people on this line? And have you seen a dead body before? Ms. Carter said the tic-tac-toe game coming to schools, cutting females, their hair, boom school for delinquent kids, or they were sent to Downingtown for troubled teens. So there were programs back then because there's prevention. How can we prevent all of this stuff? Because the streets still going to be the streets. You can see how it went from the 70s, and I can probably go back to the 60s when they had, they was wearing nice zoot suits. So this street thing is going to outlive all of us. Okay? You can go back to the 60s and even the 30s. When you had big mob people and politicians holding things down, and we knew back then, again, there was rules and regulations and loyalty that people followed. There was honor in it. Today there's no honor, there's no loyalty, there's lawlessness, there's no rules. You got young guys walking around strapped all the time. School, church, movies, bars, on the bus, in their cars, walking down the street, and you have young females strapped to. Mm-hmm. Y'all never heard, I have, there's more females in my family than males. And all the males was either your great uncles or your uncles. So females in my family, they're licensed. They're licensed. I was the last one to get my license. But my license is not for me to gain street cred or, to be outside carrying, because it ain't like that. I'm really not a violent person. But just like Bean said, either you're going to get down or you're going to lay down. Don't mess with me and mine, is what I'm saying. That's the word on the streets. But again, how do we prevent these things from happening? Somebody just got killed at a club. I believe he was a police officer. He served 2 years on the force, and he served in the services, and he was off duty, and something happened, some argument between him and somebody else, and he got shot and they killed him. And his mom was like, please stop killing each other. This is not good. This is not good. So she lost her son. And somebody lost their brother. And somebody lost their cousin. And somebody lost their uncle. And somebody lost their homie. And the people in blue lost their brother in blue. So no matter how long we live in, the streets is going to still be the streets. So prevention is improving conditions, addressing the social and economic conditions. You can have street outreach programs. There's hospital-based violence intervention programs. You can go to the CDC, and they have a web page for community violence prevention with resources for action. Listen, when I come on here, I'm giving resources. I'm not coming on here to talk all, like I got it all. Like I know it all. I'm giving you resources. So there is a program, and I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm going to put links in the chat. There's a Philadelphia anti-drug, anti-violence program. I'm going to say the number, the phone number's slow, but I'll also put them in the chat. There's a Philadelphia anti-drug, anti-violence program that you can contact. It's 215-940-0550. Again, the Philadelphia anti-drug and anti-violence program in Philadelphia is 215-940-0550. If you need resources for any other place, Delaware, Jersey, Baltimore, Virginia, DC, let me know. I can get you that information. That's why one of the names that they tagged on for me is a trap therapist. I look stuff up. I call organizations because I don't want to give somebody a resource and that organization. Sometimes we know that organization ain't doing what they say they're going to be doing. They just getting the money. They get more grant money. But I call the organizations. I refer people there. I go beat the people. I have them come out to our awareness, that we do all the time. These people are solid. These organizations are solid. There's also an anti-violence partnership. And again, this is in Philadelphia. Their contact number is 215-567-6776. The anti-violence partnership, 215-567-6776. These are places that can come in your community after something has happened to assess the situation and to give you resources. They can also come into the schools when something has happened. Counseling can happen. Resources for the family can happen. There is a violence prevention network. They have an email address. I'll put that in the chat. There's also a restore helpline. When something happens and you feel unsafe, it feels like something was taken from you. Your safety, your well-being. That's everything. You want to feel like you're safe in your community. Like you can walk out the door and nobody's going to rob you, hurt you. There's not going to be anybody possibly drive-by shootings, all that stuff. Lionel, you said you need food. My kitchen is done. You want a restricted diet now? Tell me what what kind of food you want. Like you need food to put in your refrigerator, like food pantries. I got you. But if you want me to cook you a meal, inbox me. Inbox me. I'm cooking now, honey. I'm cooking. Miss Carla shared, children didn't know what to do when parents are addicted or sent to prison or seeing death up close and personal. She said lots of youth runaways, populations on a rise, lots of lost souls. We have a lot of mentors, leaderships, programs, etc. Even in schools. Church is now very limited. She said she tried her best to lend a listening ear, especially with the senior population, of having or knowing someone who is experiencing, they're going through the need or direction to need help. We did have programs like that. One of the programs that I know about was Scared Straight. Scared Straight was an awesome program. But funding has been taken away. And why is funding taken away? Because remember, guys, these are in urban areas. In urban areas, you have people that has low income. Education is not well, and they don't think that these people will strive to be anything. But God, look how many people have strived to be above their circumstances. You came out of the hood, you went to college, and you made something out of yourself, and now you're giving back. You have a lot of I see a lot of politicians doing that. Kenyatta is doing that. I forgot the guy name in Jersey. He knows my ex-husband. He's doing that. A lot of people are giving back. Penn. So some hospitals have prevention of violence and things like this. So Penn has a community violence prevention program, and they provide trauma-informed violence interruption services to youth and young adults in West and South Philly. That number is 215-746-0149. And again, that's Penn Community Violence Prevention. They do West Philly and Southwest Philly. CHOP has a violence intervention program. It's a community and family focused model that provides trauma-informed intensive case management to youth between the ages of 8 and 18 who are treated at CHOP for any type of injury due to interpersonal community violence. So if a kid comes in and they're injured at CHOP, maybe there's a shooting, maybe someone got, ran over, someone witnessed domestic violence, anything like that. If this kid was treated at CHOP between the ages of 8 and 18, they get trauma-informed intense case management services. That's going to be, that information will be left in the link. He said, you want me to have some? Listen, I just gave my daughter some fruit today, Lionel. You got to be careful with that fruit, though. It has natural sugar in there, and that can, put you on the level of being, pre-diabetic and diabetic. It messes with your AC1, so be careful with fruit. They also have a Healing Hurt People program at Drexel. Drexel is their community is linked with violence intervention program that provides trauma-specific services between the ages of 5 to 35. You see how that number is getting lower? It's getting lower. There's also the Center for Nonviolence and Social Justice. That phone number is 267-359-2446. Again, I'm going to put all this information in the chat. All this information in the chat. Now, Temple, at their main campus, they have a hospital-based violence intervention program. It's trauma victim, and they have a trauma victim advocacy program. The number there is 215-707-8398. Again, Temple main campus. They have a trauma victim advocacy program, and they also have a hospital-based violence intervention program. 215-707-8398. And I want to leave you guys with this, and we all have heard of this. The streets don't love nobody. And what does that really mean? A life of crime, hustling, or street culture, it offers no genuine loyalty, no safety, or emotional reward, no matter how dedicated or tough a person is. The environment will eventually betray them or abandon you. So your street cred fades. Repping a set or a block. At the end of the day, you either lost your life or you're in jail. And then there's a guy, his name is Paul Steven, and his rap, he says, see, the streets don't love me. I gotta keep a Bucky close when it gets ugly. Who wants to live that way? That they're always in that fight or flight mode. That they never feel safe, not even when they're home. That can mess with the mind. That can give you paranoia. That can give you anxiety. And when you do go out and interact with people, you can see somebody you think moved wrong. And now you're approaching them. Now you're looking at them kind of funny. Or, again, So the streets don't love nobody. It's going to eventually betray you or abandon you. Ms. Carla said the Croc Center that's on Worcester Hicken has a lot of resources. Thank you, Ms. Carla. I'm going to look that information up and I'll put that in the chat as well. We have all witnessed and experienced some things in our lives. Some good, some bad, some lessons and blessings we learned. And it probably was cool and you had swag and your name was up in lights for a while when you was in those streets. But if you have a family and you're a grandfather and you're an uncle or you have responsibilities, leave the streets where they are because they don't love you. I thank you guys for listening to me tonight. I hope you found something interesting out of this topic. Again, I will put those resources in the chats. If there's a topic or a subject that you want to talk about that comes across your mind, inbox me. I'll look some things up. If there's someone that wants to come on the show and talk about a specific platform, inbox me. Next week, I'm going to be trying to get maybe my young guy come on and talk about his experience in the streets, in the street life. I know a guy that I had on here, my grit, I have a grit series that's talking about, growing up under hard life and then turning that thing around. If anybody remember Valentino, I think he's in Florida right now. He just got out of jail. He was trying to turn his life around. He gave his life to God. The man is married. He has a child now. He's a professional trainer. I want to bring him back on so he can tell you from grit to grace and where he is now and how his mentality changes and how he sees himself now as how he saw himself back then. So that might happen soon. Okay, you guys, that's the end of my time. It's a little late. My name is Kibble Evans. I am your trap therapist, and you have just tuned in to the Trap Lounge. There's going to be some special events that's going to be coming up. Again, you'll see some flyers being posted around, but until then, be safe, guys. Have a good night.